Chavre, how are you? I hope everyone is gesund, stark and freilich, begashmius and beruchnis. It's very late in Melbourne. Shabbos is in around an hour, so the time is short. The first thing is we're going to give tzedakah, daily tzedakah, Shem Karevis Zagula, Mashiach should come now. Today is Rosh Chodesh, Yom Aleph the Rosh Chodesh Elul, a very auspicious general day in Avodas Hashem. As is well known, the Rebbe always stressed that one should spread and teach the 5 acronyms connected to Elul. And we are going to speak about one of them today, and how it's connected to the Parshas HaShavua. Unbelievable. But first let's say a prayer, and we'll speak about thank you Hashem for life. One prayer for thanking Hashem for life is Moida ani lefanecha melech chai v'kayim shechzarta b'nishmasi bechem l'rabba emunasecha, which the Rebbe emphasizes is now not about thanking Hashem for life, but Moida ani lefanecha shechzarta b'nishmasi. It's really thanking Hashem about the fact that you're a Jew. We'll say another prayer connected to a major thanks for Chol Achayim Yedu Choselo. All living things shall forever thank you. V'halu Shimcha Godol Elam Kitei V'kel Yishu Aseinu V'Deseinu Selo V'kel Ateiv Baruch Ato Hashem Ateiv Shimcha U'Lecho Noelo Eidois. We say thank you Hashem. Beneficent is your name, and to you it's fitting to offer thanks. So basically this blessing is thanking Hashem for everything, life and all that is contained within it, and all our experiences. So for this we say thank you Hashem. In this week's Parsha, the Rambam and the Chinuch bring down the mitzvah of Orei Miklot, cities of refuge. So the Pasuk says in Kapitel Yutes, Pasuk Gimel, Tochen L'cha Derech, you should prepare for yourself the way to these cities. Whoever killed someone inadvertently, by mistake, an accident, would run to the 3 cities, we'll soon see more, of refuge. Prepare yourself the way, and you'll see here at length. And then there's also the famous pasuk where it says that he will run there. Hu yonas al achas ha'orim ha'ele v'choy. He will be able to run there and live. It's a fascinating mitzvah. It's mentioned in the Torah a couple of times. There are 3 mitzvahs related to the Orei Miklot. The more you look into it, the more you see neflois b'teirosecha. And it could be we're going to have to speak about it some other times. I thought I was going to get to a sikh from the Rebbe, but first, I think there's some basic aspects of the mitzvah that are actually neflois, which I didn't realize till today. In this mitzvah, we see the paradox of the awesomeness of one single life. What does it mean? What's contained? What's the idea of a life? So let's go back to the question, what's the idea? So the idea is if somebody killed somebody accidentally, and that itself there's many details, what does it mean exactly accidentally? He has to run to a city of refuge to save himself from the Goyel Adam. The Goyel Adam is a relative of the one who was killed, who may want to avenge the fact that he killed a person, and the Goyel Adam is allowed to, technically, to kill this person who by mistake killed another person. So what is the mitzvah? We have to set up cities of refuge where this person who killed accidentally runs, and then there's a court case to decide if it was a genuine mistake, and then he doesn't have to live anymore in the city of refuge necessarily. I don't want to get into all the details, but what's the point? He does have to live in the city of refuge. But it could be a case where it comes out that it was murder. And there's actually some cases of a mistake which is considered a most mistake. It was impossible at all to even think that a murder should come out of it. And then it's considered a case where he doesn't have to go to the city of refuge. But these are all details which I don't want to get into. The general mitzvah is that if somebody killed somebody accidentally, and then it was considered a mistake. He has to go into the city of refuge for the rest of his life until the Kohen Gadol passes away. And this way, he's secure and safe. It's a safe haven that the Goyal Adam cannot kill him. So, what is the paradox which is so awesome that I recognize and discovered today was that when you look into the reason for the mitzvah, it brings two sides. On the one side, it says that the reason why he has to go into exile is because since he killed somebody accidentally, that means that this has some connection to him. In other words, this act of causing the end of life of another person is so grave, so serious, that that's your atonement, even if it was by mistake. Because we cannot measure what it means, a life. And you snuffed out the life of another person. This is immeasurable, the seriousness of this thing. And therefore the only thing that could counter it is that because of this, you have to go into exile for the rest of your life or until the Kohen passes away. That's how seriousness, the measure of a life is. Together with that, it's brought down that you have to feel the pain for the rest of your life of what you caused others inadvertently. But because, like I said before, that shows that it has some connection to you. So on the one hand, when we look at the mitzvah and we look at the reason for the mitzvah, what's behind it, it's because of the person who committed it. He has to go through that. That's, in other words, so-called like a punishment, an atonement, so to speak. But guess what? Some commentaries bring out the opposite effect, the opposite idea. Why does he have to go to the Ari Miklat? The mitzvah is to protect him. Because for whatever reason Torah allows, gives license for the person who is a family member to be able to kill him. We go through such a degree, we go through such effort that he has to go into exile, but it's all about to save his life. So we see the value of what it means in life, of how far we go to make sure that another life should not be destroyed. In other words, part of the concept of the Ari Miklat is to, if we look at the overall big picture, is to minimize bloodshed. And one way how we see this clearly connected is because in the pasuk that it says, "Hu yonas alachas ha'arim," he's going to run to one of these cities. In this Parsha, the pasuk we mentioned before, he'll be able to escape to that place of refuge, v'choy, and live. And from this we learn out the halacha, and the Gemara brings it down, that Talmud, if a disciple, a student, goes into exile, megalan Rabbi imay, his teacher has to also go into exile. It's hard to fathom, but this is the halacha. And why? Because v'choy, he should have a life. So even though he has to go in exile, and on one hand the stages emphasize that this going into exile is equal to death, so that shows how it's a punishment, so to speak, for the person who killed it accidentally. But at the same time, the same Torah is stressing, v'choy, he should have a life over there. So it's about his benefit. And therefore he's able to demand and get a life. And what does a life mean? Including his professors, his masters, his teachers. It's beyond, it's unbelievable. And I don't know why, I think there's a sikh of the Rebbe about it. Yes, I know for sure there was. I think I once spoke about it on this week's Parsha. But just like we always speak about the unbelievable Rambam that says that where do we know that the true definition of every single Jew is that he wants to serve Hashem, is from the halacha. Everyone knows this. I don't want to elaborate. When it comes to giving a divorce, we force him until he says, I want. Obvious question is, he doesn't want. You're forcing him, therefore he's saying he wants. The Rambam comes along and says just the opposite. He really wants to do what Hashem's will is. Because every Jew wants to do Hashem's will. And when we're forcing him, we're like beating the devil out of him. He became possessed with some evil spirit that's now convincing him to do something wrong. But that's not his true being. So we have to get that possession out of him, and then his true will comes out. And what's his true will? That he wants to serve Hashem. Here too, where do we find? I'm just wondering, where do we find in halacha that the true life of a Jew is Torah? I don't think we find it. I mean, as far as I know, I don't know of another example. We find it as a halacha. The halacha is that if a disciple goes into the Ari Miklat, he has to run there as a safe haven. So then the teacher has to go. Why? Because v'choy, he has to live, he has to have a life. And what does it mean, a life? That he has his Maggid Shir, the one who teaches him Torah. Unbelievable. So here we see the beauty of Yiddishkeit in general, that in the same mitzvah, we have two aspects of it. In other words, in general, what's one of the beautiful, beautiful things of Torah, and especially Chassidus, in the light of Chassidus, is how things could work on many layers, on many levels. It's working on two levels over here. The mitzvah is working on the level where it's a punishment for the one who committed murder by accident. And number two, it's on a level and a layer where it's for his protection. It shows that we're safeguarding him, we're keeping him safe. And to what degree we're going to go so far as to make sure he's safe, that we're going to make special cities of refuge for just such a person who finds himself in such a situation that he's in danger because there are assassins that are trying to kill him. And look what the Torah will do just to protect that person. It's amazing. And it inspires me when you learn Torah and you see the appreciation of how something can have a logic this way and a logic that way, and it all works and it's no problem. Now, before we get to the connection to Elul and what it means practically, something that I learned just today, interestingly, I never realized this before. Everyone knows the 6 mitzvahs that the Chinuch writes in the beginning of Sefer HaChinuch. They're called the Shesh Mitzvahs Tmidis, the 6 constant mitzvahs that everyone knows about. But somebody reminded me today, and I didn't even realize, and I looked it up. In the Akdama, where the Chinuch brings the 6 mitzvahs that are Tmidis, he writes as follows. There are 6 mitzvahs Tmidis, and what are they? Lahaman b'Shem, to believe in Hashem. Shleihaman zulosei, not to believe in any other gods. Liyachtei, to practice, to understand, to be aware of the oneness of Hashem. La'avo, you say to love Him. Li'ira, you say to fear Him. Shleilos oracham machshavas halev v'riyas einayim. Do not stray and guard yourself. Do not stray after the desires of your heart and other things that are evil, and you should be on guard. And then he writes like this: Simonon, a sign to remember the 6 mitzvahs. These are the 6 mitzvahs that are incumbent on every single Jew. Every single Jew is obligated in these 6 mitzvahs 24/7. That's why they're called the Shesh Mitzvahs Tmidis. There's no limitations to where you live, male or female. And he writes, Simonam Sheish Ori Miklot Tiyena Lechem. These 6 mitzvahs, to remember them as a sign, is the 6 cities of refuge you should have. That's a pasuk at the end of Sefer Bamidbar. So that's an amazing simon. In other words, what's Ori Miklot? You have to see the Ori Miklot as your protection. Your Ari Miklat is your haven. You know, today the world is crazy about safe space. There's safe cities. Those 6 mitzvahs are the safe space of the entire Torah. If you keep strong, if you focus on those 6 mitzvahs, you'll be protected from all sort of evil. Today the world is crazy, and we've seen this especially during the time of COVID, social distancing, and even vaccines. I mean, everyone, I think most people agree on the idea of vaccines. I don't want to get into any problems right now about COVID, but let's talk about German measles, polio, shingles. Most people take the regular accepted vaccines that's been around. What's a vaccine? You're going to get a little bit of a problem. Why? Because a tiny sense of the population, gets this and this and this, and you want to protect yourself from that and that and that. But in general, the whole idea of physical health. The Rabbi mentioned once in a sikha that we're talking to parents, and you tell the parent, you know what, when it comes to physical health, we'll go with 50-50. And the Rabbi says the parent would scream, 50-50? I don't want 50-50, I want 100%. So the Rabbi says when it comes to spiritual health, of course you should say the same thing. You don't want 50-50, you want 100%. So this is the message of Miklat. It brings out, what are the stakes? The person who's not in the Ori Miklat, his life is in danger. That's why cities of refuge. In a way, you have to be on the run. Any relative who's considered a Goyal Adam could kill you. So for your own benefit, run! Because we made for you a special safe space, which will be the protection, the security shield, the Iron Dome, that will never fail. And if not, anything could happen. Who knows? Comes the chinuch and says, this is the remez. Why is that the remez? Because just like the Sheish Ali Miklat, with the 6 cities of refuge that saves your life, these 6 mitzvahs are the 6 mitzvahs that will save your life spiritually. If you focus and concentrate and kochzich in these 6 mitzvahs, then it'll be like a city of refuge. Now we come to Chodesh Elul. The Rebbe in the Kuti Sichas Cheli Beis, the famous Sikha where he spoke about the month of Elul, and the Arizal is the one who said that the Rosh Tevis, one of the Rosh Tevis acronyms of Elul is Ino Liyodi V'Samti L'cha. That's a pasuk, I think, in Mishpatim, where it speaks about somebody who killed somebody by mistake. And the pasuk, the literal pasuk says, V'alikim. You have to read the whole pasuk to get the context of what's going on over there. V'alikim in Eliyodi, which means you didn't want to kill, but it was unintentional. V'alikim in Eliyodi. Hashem brought it about into his hand. V'samti l'cha mokoim. And I will make a place for you, Asher Yonas Shama, will you be able to escape, will you be able to run to. So Elul, the month of Elul, is the month that Rizal says that Hashem gave us a month that we should run into, which means it's the time where we could take care of every mistake that we did throughout the entire year. This is the safe space that will take care of whatever mistakes we did throughout the entire year. So first of all, we have to emphasize anything which you really care about. You're not walking, you're running. It's like, for example, if there was a wholesale Avil de Mitzir, something that cost regularly $1,000, and now you can get it for $70. You're running. I'm just saying. You're running, you're not just walking. Moshcheni acharecha. Moshcheni acharecha nerutza. We have to run after Hashem. The motivation has to be fierce, has to be intense. You understand? And that's the word, that you should feel that this month of Elul, once it's a matter of life and death, your life is in danger, your spiritual life is in danger, so then you see the city of refuge as something which is the greatest gift that Hashem gave you, this opportunity, and therefore you're running there. It's similar to the Alter Rebbe writes in Perek Lamed Aleph. We mentioned this before of Tanya. It's Meiri de Perek. We don't have the time to get into the details, but just to read one line, we says V'zois tia v'dosei kol yomav b'simcha rabba hi simchas hanefesh b'tzeiso me'aguf ha'mesur v'shovel b'saviyah k'noreh b'shas ha'toiru v'avoida k'may merazal liyos kol yomav b'tshuva. The Alter Rebbe is talking about a motivation, how to inspire the person. When a person realizes that the only way to transcend the limitations of the body, and in general the limitations of this world, you know, there's a lot of Tom, Dick, and Harrys in the world. Ilav hayem adikagorim. If not for Torah mitzvahs, I'd be like any Johnny. But I realized the preciousness and the beauty and the awesomeness and the profundity of Torah, to the degree that I realized this is the only way, this is the only life. And this is the only way I can transcend the limitations of my body. And if not, I'm thinking to myself, what's life all about? How much time is spent on eating and sleeping and dealing with issues? Whether the issues is dandruff, acne, mortgage, bank, bills. And the Eibishter gave us an opportunity which lifts up everything, that we realize that you can infuse the mundane with spirituality. And he gives you those windows where you can connect with infinity. So that will inspire you to know it. That's what he writes about in chapter 31. See there? And therefore he says, this is your avodah all day, days of your life. B'simcha rabba. What's the simcha rabba? That you realize that with Yiddishkeit you can transcend the limitations of man, so to speak. And that's what it means kol yom b'tshuva. We can take without chassidus, kol yom b'tshuva seems a bit depressing. I have to always think that I did something wrong and I have to do tshuva. No, kol yom b'tshuva means I'm always returning. I'm on a journey where I'm returning home. I'm returning home. I'm returning to my true self. That's what I'm doing every single day. And then he says, "Ve'en lecha simcha gedela, ketzeis me'agolas v'ashivyo, kemoshel ben melech shoy b'shivyo v'toichem b'veis ha'asurim, u'menuvel ba'ashpo v'yetzel lechovshi al beis obi v'melech." And he says, in the example of a king's son who was kept in captivity, grinding corn in prison and becoming covered with filth. Then he is liberated and he returns to his father's royal house. That's what it means, kol yom b'tshuva. He's constantly connecting to his true source, sitting at the table in his father's royal house together with his father. So a Yid who's doing Torah and mitzvahs in such a way, he's always motivated, and he's besimcha that he was given this opportunity of transcendence. So this is what it means. Chodesh Elul represents Inna liyodei v'samti l'cha. Hashem gave us a month which is a safe space, which is a safe house, which is a cocoon, which is a haven. And this is what it means. We're returning to the true self. This is who we really are. We got distracted during the year, sometimes chasing petty trivialities. So we have to realize we were given this month. We should cherish it. We should love it. We should run to it. B'simcha rabba, like the Alter Rebbe describes. In Perek Lamed Aleph. I'll finish with an analogy, which I think I said many times before. It's called the hare and the hound. So in the olden days, there was these people that were a sport that they had. They would chase hares, rabbits that are small. Anyways, so there's a chase going on. People are riding on the horses, and they have these big hounds, and they're chasing the rabbits. And there's a grandfather walking with the grandson. There's many different versions of this fable, but I'm saying it the way I heard it. There's a grandfather walking with his grandson, and the grandfather tells the grandson, "Hey, what do you think? Who's going to win?" The grandson says, "Of course the hounds. Every step the hound takes is 4 times the size of the rabbit, and the rabbits are tiny, and the hounds are bigger and stronger, so for sure they'll catch the hare, the rabbits." Anyways, they're watching what's going on. The grandpa says, "Watch." They're watching what's going on. In the end, the hare, the rabbits escaped. And the grandson says, "I can't understand it. How is it possible that the rabbit was able to escape the hounds? The hare escaped the hounds?" And the grandpa says, "It's very simple. The answer is because the hounds were running for their dinner, the hounds were running for the supper, but the hares were running for their lives." Meaning to say that the reward, if they captured the rabbit for the hounds, was that the hounds would get fed this rabbit. So the hound is running for his supper, for his dinner, and the hare is running for his life. So this is a moedik word. If somebody taka looked at Yiddishkeit, Torah mitzvahs, like it says in the pasuk, Yonas al achas ha'orim ha'ela v'choy, it's taka your life, then the running to it would be different. With a greater joy, with a greater power. So l'chaim, we should all maximize a guten chodesh, a freiliche chodesh, ksivich simetevel, l'shana tevel mesukah. We should all appreciate the beauty of Yiddishkeit and how to see that it's the true chayis, the true life of every single one of us, and then we'll attach ourselves to it with a greater power than anything else, because it's the most precious thing that we have. And by us doing it, that will make sure without a question of a doubt, that it'll be Ksivich Simatev L'Shana Tev M'Sukkah, Mashiach now, posting from my home, Be'ez Hashem Yisbarich, your man in Melbourne.